All right. So when you first log into the software, once you're logged in, the first thing that you're going to see is this screen, and this screen is the dashboard. The dashboard is going to give you some overview on some things, ready to file returns. The message board will update you on things that we need. If we have any important or time considerate messages or notifications, we will pop those in the software so that when you log in, one of the first things you're going to see is that message. This will give you a rejected return summary, and you can click these blue links or these buttons up here to get a list of what's there. A daily return summary, and then the e-file return summary is in here as well. So a couple of things here on this front screen that I want to point out to everybody. And one is this live chat button. All right, this live chat button will get you connected with me via live chat. So if you're inside the software and you've got a question, please use the live chat. It works really well. It's very quick. It's very fast. I'm able to answer 3, 4, 5 of these at one time, where as a phone call, I can only answer one at a time. So this may be your best source. But again, you can always call me if you want. If I need to get a remote session, I'm going to tell you to log into the software and click remote support, and then I'll give you a session ID and we'll get that session connected there. For the most part, I won't need to do this unless I just need to train you on something or walk you through something. Typically, I can see the actual return through my multi-office management tool. So if you have a problem inside the return, I'll probably just ask you to exit out of the return. Let me take a look at it. We'll get it fixed. This quick account setup will go through the basics of what you need for account setup. Okay. So inside here, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. One is the add new preparer function. So this is where you can actually come in and add new preparers. Okay. Down here in the user options, you have to decide whether or not you want them to see all of the taxpayers in the software or just the ones that they did. My advice to you is make sure at minimum they have these 3 checked. The disable view print config, you should always leave that unchecked. There's very few circumstances in which you need to check that box. So file amended, print tax forms, email tax returns, those 3 are my recommendation to you to have active. Okay. On the user privileges, depending on how you want them set up, the minimum that a preparer is going to need to be able to do their job is client. I would also say letters, and then tools. You can give them forms, but this is sort of a mock-up for most preparers, or for preparers, maybe not an office manager or something like that. If they're an office manager, you might want to give them more access, right, than just a seasonal preparer. Okay. In the firm setup, most of this is already done for you. The only thing that you want to check is make sure that if you have an EIN that you've entered that here, and just uncheck that box. And then the EFIN status summary. If you have not uploaded your EFIN status summary, you can get the EFIN status summary by logging into eServices, looking at your EFIN, and then clicking the application summary. And if you hit print, you can save it as a PDF and then upload. If you get stuck in that process anywhere, please reach out to me. I will walk you through it. We can go through it together and make sure that we get it uploaded. Now, as you see here, mine says uploaded, not verified. Just means that I've uploaded it, but the IRS has not responded to that request. Whether they respond or not doesn't matter. They are not going to prevent you from filing returns if it's not verified in our system. What this is doing more than anything else is giving you a heads up, hopefully before the season, as to whether your EFIN is active or not. The IRS will send it back to us and say, hey, this EFIN is not active. At that point, I can be a little proactive. I can reach out to you and we can find out why that EFIN's not active, get it reactivated, or get a new EFIN if we need to, ideally before the season starts. So if you haven't done this, please do it. Let me know if you need any help, okay? Pricing setup. So you've got a couple of options in the pricing setup, and it's all relative to how your office runs. Every office runs a little bit different. If you charge a flat rate of, let's say, $350 a return, then you just mark it as fixed rate for all returns. You type in $350, then you hit save federal pricing. that will apply that 350 to every return. Okay. If you set it by form, then you can come in and you can set the price. Let's say I want to do 150 for the 1040. On a Schedule C, I want to add another 125. So you just enter the amount and then you click Save Pricing. I have mine set to set manually after every return. Basically what that means is when you go to the client payment screen, it's going to pop up a box before you get to the invoice that says, what do you want to charge? And it'll give you the federal and the state, depending on how these are set up. So the pricing for federal and for state are very, very similar. You can do one thing that is different. You can set a price for each state. So if you want to charge more for Illinois than you do for Kentucky, you have that option as well. Again, I'm setting mine to set price manually after every return. If you have discounts, you know, veterans discounts, prior year client discounts, sort of discounts that you always use, you can enter that here. You can do preset discounts if you want to. Now, you always have the ability to modify the invoice and add a discount individually, but this gives you some preset amounts. Same thing with additional charges. If there are additional charges that you consistently use, maybe prior year return e-file, you can enter that information in here as well. Now, this invoice config, I have actually gone in manually and done this for everybody, so there shouldn't be anything for you need to do here. If for whatever reason, or if by chance I missed one, please let me know. I'll fix it and we'll get it handled. All right. I'm going to jump into the setup real quick because there is one thing that I want to show you guys, and it's under setup and bank, and it's this audit protection. So the audit protection is done by a company called Audit Group. I am actually a part of that company. It's a partner of mine. So you can enroll in the audit protection. You just come to audit protection under bank, click save and continue. And the audit assistance pricing is $34.95. If you want to add on top of that, you can. It just can't exceed $65. And then you can set it to either default the audit protection for all taxpayers or do not default audit protection for all taxpayers. So you get the option to add it if you want to add it. That's entirely up to you, but I encourage you to do that. Audit Group is a great resource for you guys to have. And if you guys need marketing materials or anything like that for it, please let me know. We'll get those out to you. Okay. So going back to individual, we're going to focus on the actual return process mostly today. So we're going to go to clients. Oh, before I do that, I want to show you guys something that we finally got kind of settled. And that is, how do you do prior year returns? Okay. So prior year returns, you can click log into prior year and then choose the year that you want to log into and then do the return like you would any other year, right? You can come in and just click new return and you'll be good to go. Okay. There is one exception to this, and that's if we go into a return and we hit this file prior year return button link. If we do that, you have to complete the return using client's prior year return, selecting that year. Now, the reason this is different is just sort of the way things are set up. I would prefer not to use this prior year return at all because the process is a little bit different. However, if you need to do the login to prior year or file prior year from that link, I completely understand, and I would encourage you to do it that way. Otherwise, if you're just creating a new return for 2019 and then you want to carry it forward to 2020 or 2021, you can do that by using login prior year. All right. That's sort of the way that's going to work. Now, in this client list, you've got a bunch of options here. By and large part, you're really going to be focused really on one or two of these options that are in here. You can view these other lists in this toolbar up here, but for the most part, you're going to be in new return and manage returns. All right. Now, manage returns, you can adjust these columns to put whatever you want. This is just the way mine currently looks. So we can edit the preparer preferences and actually select what we want in there. So if we want their date of birth on this or the AGI, we can add it to that, and you'll see now I have date of birth, I have AGI. So you can adjust those with as much or as little information as you want. You can sort by SSN, by name, or by preparer. If you want to hide the client list, you can. There's a checkbox here, and that'll hide the client list. And it'll tell you that the clients are hidden. If you do that by accident, just uncheck the box, and you'll be good to go. You can sort returns by return stage. And when we get into the actual return towards the client manager screen, I'm going to show you what these return stages are, because they could be useful depending on how your office is set up. If your office is set up in a way where your preparers have to submit returns for them to be reviewed before they're actually transmitted, that's where the return stages can be very, very helpful. So I'll show you guys that in just a second. The other thing inside here is obviously new return. So you can click new return, and we're going to just enter a social. If they're applying for a W-7, you don't have to put anything in that box. You just click apply W-7. It will fill that out for you. So we do save and continue. I am set to direct input mode by default. If you have newer, younger preparers, they can use the interview mode, and I will show you guys that when we finish this return. I'll go show you what the interview mode looks like. Looks very similar to TurboTax, to be honest with you. This is going to look a lot closer to what most of you guys have been using. So this information is all in here. So we just hit, let's just create a return. We're going to call it and throw them somewhere in the 80s. If a taxpayer has an identity protection PIN, this is where you would enter it. A couple of notes on the identity protection PIN. Those change every year. If they give you a letter from last year, that identity protection PIN is not going to work. They get a new one every year. If they are unable to find that letter or locate that letter, there is an identity protection tool on the IRS website that they can use to get that identity protection PIN. I'm probably going to make a video about that later this week or later this month, specifically about the identity protection PIN, because what I have seen historically in the past is that we get a lot of those returns in, and then you get the rejection, and then you just end up paper filing it. We don't need to do that. We can get the identity protection PIN from the IRS's website, so that'll save you guys some time, boost your bank product numbers as well. So the affordable care question, you only have to answer that question if they have a 1095A. I'm sorry, you only have to answer yes on that question if they have a 1095A. If they got a 1095B or 1095C, it's not required for 2021. You don't have to enter anything. So we're going to say no. We're going to set the filing status to head of household. And we're going to put in an address here. There is a built-in zip code database, so you can just skip the city and state and go straight to the zip code. Yeah, you want to enter. I recommend getting an email address for everybody. The reason for that is it gives you twofold. One, you can use it for email marketing later, which I'm actually going to discuss with you guys at the end of this, as well as being able to send them copies of their tax return. It's super easy, especially if you already have the email address in here. So we've introduced text messaging this year. Some of you may or may not know that. There is an opt-in question here, though. You need to, if you want to be able to send a text message from the software to your client, the taxpayer does need to opt in. You just need to ask them, is it okay if I send you text messages from, if I send you text messages periodically about your return, whatever it is. Generally, you want to say yes, and I'll show you guys where that is and how that works. So by default, the software determines the resident state here by whatever address you put in. So if the address you put in is Louisiana, then it's going to add the resident state of Louisiana. And it will automatically add the Louisiana state return as a resident. Okay. So if we were to change this to Montana, for example, when we hit save, it's going to add the state of Montana. Now, before I do that, I want to get to two things on this bottom section, and then we're going to save, and I'll show you how that works. One is, if you have Spanish-speaking clients, you can generate the actual printed forms to generate in Spanish. That can be hugely useful for some of you guys who have larger, Hispanic populations that prefer to have their forms in Spanish. Okay. Second thing is down here. If they want a direct deposit, enter the information. If they don't, leave it blank. That's generally how it's going to work. If they want a direct deposit from the IRS, enter the information. We're going to mark it as a direct deposit because you gave us direct deposit information, right? If they don't, if they want a paper check from the IRS, just leave this blank. There is no refund selection in here, refund type. And I'll show you when we get to the payment, sort of what I mean. So if there's direct deposit information, it'll be a direct deposit. If there's not, it will be a paper check. Bank products are handled a little bit differently. Okay, so now we're going to hit save, and we're going to watch. Montana is actually going to add to this return as a resident state. So if we go look right here in the left-hand corner, we have Montana. Now we can hit revisit and see that Montana is marked as a full year resident. If it's a part year, then we can change it. And it'll ask you, do you want to override? We say yes. We're going to leave it as full year, and we're going to go back to the federal. Now, one of the reasons I show you that is on the W-2, it will add your states as non-resident states if the resident state, for example, I'm changing this back to Texas, but if my resident state is Texas, but I have a W-2 rather, that has Louisiana, for example, it will add the state of Louisiana, and I'll show you guys that when we get to the W-2. So next we're going to move down to this additional information. So this additional information is really about taxpayer identity verification, and that's what this page is for. This will keep you compliant with the IRS. So in this case, we're going to ask, does Bruno have a state-issued driver's license or ID card? Probably not. He's my dog, but we're going to say yes for the sake of this. So we say yes, and then we can enter that information, right? We got driver's license. We'll throw in the state here. Issue date, if it has one. If it doesn't, that's fine. You just check that box. Okay. Then we get down into the actual taxpayer identity verification. So for those of you that do bank products, this information from the primary taxpayer's ID will go to the bank application. It will flow. You will not have to re-enter that information. It will carry where it needs to carry. Okay. In this taxpayer identity verification, it's all relative to where and how you verified their identity. Now, the IRS says that we're required as tax preparers to verify that the person submitting the information actually is the person, right? So that's why we get photo IDs. Now, as we've gotten in person, it makes it easier, as we've moved away from being in person in a lot of cases or more remote, this becomes trickier to do, right? So in this case, we're going to say, no, we didn't verify in person, but we verified remote. And one of the ways that you can verify remote is have them send you the ID, which you have to have anyway. And then my advice to you is do a FaceTime, a Zoom meeting, something like that, where you can get face-to-face with that person and verify that the person that you're speaking with is the same as the person who is on the ID. Secondly, adding to that, one of the big pushes from the IRS and the Security Summit in relation to tax preparers was making sure that you guys are verifying who it is you're speaking with before you give information out. Apparently, a lot of tax preparers are not, they don't have any kind of verification system in place. So before you give a refund type or a refund amount or anything like that, you should be verifying who it is you're speaking to. For example, if you were to call your credit card company, they're going to ask you a series of questions before they talk to you about your account. You should have a very similar system in your office. Ask them to verify their social, the last four of their social, and their date of birth, whatever it is. Have some kind of verification, because the last thing that you want to do is provide information to someone who should not have it. That privacy violation could be civilly liable, from a legal standpoint, but also it's just bad business. It's going to be bad for business if they're out there blasting you because you told their girlfriend how much their refund was, right? So make sure that you're talking to someone who actually is on the return and use that verification for it. Same thing here. So what we're asking here is, did you remotely verify the following information: current government ID, and then some other way for you to verify who they actually are beyond the ID, financial or utility account number. You can do both. And again, this is more about keeping you compliant with the IRS. The IRS comes in an identity theft investigation. They're going to ask you these questions, and knowing that you did this and you have the documentation for it will actually help you a bit, quite a bit in that. This very last one is Form 1040 Schedule LEP, okay? What that is basically a poll question from the IRS asking, what other languages do you want written communication from the IRS to be in besides English? I will tell you this. Spanish is going to be number one on the list. So if your clients are, predominantly Spanish speaking, I would answer this question no, because Spanish is already going to be on the list, right? If you've got a client base that speaks Korean, then you may want to say yes and try to push Korean up a little bit, that list. But for the most part, you can answer this question no. So we're going to hit save. And this is actually a good point for me to bring up now. If you leave a screen, if you've entered information and then you click on another screen and you have not saved, that information will not save. That save button is what continues you through the process. For example, and I'll show you, if I change his last name to Test and then I bounce over here, it's going to tell you, you have updated this page. Are you sure you want to exit without saving? I'm going to say yes, because I don't want to save that information. So moving down to dependent information. Dependent information is the first time in the software that we get to see what I call the spreadsheet view or the Excel view, right? It's going to list columns of information and rows. So we're going to click Add New. Right? If the dependent has an identity protection pin, you'll enter it on that dependent. Now, we make a lot of assumptions in this software based on history, right? We assume that if you're adding a dependent, that the dependent lived with you for 12 months. If that is different, then you make that change, okay? We assume that you want to claim this dependent as a dependent. Based on social security number and age, we're going to determine whether or not they're eligible for child tax credit or other dependent credit. We're going to assume that that they qualify for EIC. We're going to assume that they're a U.S. citizen, right? Based on those things. Those are all questions that we actually can answer ahead of time. What we can't do is determine whether or not they are the head of household qualifier. So when you file head of household, you have to have a qualifier. One dependent or one person, doesn't even necessarily have to be a dependent, well, one person has to qualify you for head of household. My advice to you is anybody filing head of household, typically their first dependent is going to be their qualifier. Just check it on that one. Just make sure that you check this HOH qualifier checkbox, and then you can move on. Now, in the last webinar, we talked quite a bit about the qualifying child and dependent care expenses. And so I'm going to show you guys how that works in here. So for this dependent, we're going to say we had $4,000 in childcare expenses, right? If they have qualified tuition that is not listed on a 1098-T, you can enter that, but honestly, I probably would stay away from doing that as much as possible. We're going to answer these EIC questions for you as much as we can. And then down here at the bottom, you have to answer the ACA question. So if they got a 1095A because they had health insurance through the marketplace, then you want to enter yes on that, and then you'll be required to fill out the 8965 to reconcile that whole thing, okay? So we're going to say save, and that'll take us back out here. Now, you'll notice right here in this section, we've given you a nice little alert that says, hey, you have entered child and dependent care expenses here. So you have to enter any care provider information on the part 1 of the 2441. So we're going to go do that now because we've already done this. So we're going to click this blue link. It'll take us over to the 2441. We're going to choose the state. By default, that should be set, but I changed my state. So make sure that the state is set because some states give you credit for dependent care expenses. So you want to make sure that you have the right state selected. So we're going to add a new provider. We're going to come down. We're going to say it's an EIN. And because I have the EIN database active, it pulled all that information for me. I'm going to enter a daytime phone number. And then we're going to enter the amount paid. We're going to say all $4,000 was paid to this provider. Okay, so now if we go down, it's going to ask, did you pay any 2020 expenses in 2021? We're going to say no. Okay, and we're going to hit save. Now, right now, the credit is not calculating because I do not have any earned income. You do have to have income to qualify for this dependent care expenses. So once we add income, you're going to see this refund amount change drastically. Now, this is an important thing to note because I think a lot of people don't know this. You do not have to have income to qualify for child tax credit because it is now fully refundable and there is no income requirements for it. It's not like earned income or the child and dependent care expenses, which is why that refund is calculating $3,600 because I have one dependent who is under age 6. Right? So going back to all forms. So now we need to add some level of income. So Bruno gave me a 1099 and he gave me a W-2. He gave me a 1099 NEC and he gave me a W-2. We're going to add the W-2 first. And the easiest way to do that is just type in W-2 in the search box. And then hit W-2, click add new, and you start here. Right there at the identification number. If you have the control number, you can enter it, but it doesn't matter. Okay, then we're going to go and add wages and federal tax withheld. And this is where I'm going to show you what Louisiana does if we have a Louisiana return or Louisiana information in box 15. We're going to enter part of it. Oh, yeah. We're going to enter 265. We're just going to enter a little bit. All right, then we're going to hit save on the W-2. And now we can continue to add more, right? We're going to give you some warnings if you have an issue or something doesn't match up, right? I have $25,000 in wages, but I only put $2,651 for the state. So you may need to verify that information is correct, which is what this message is telling you. But you may also need to allocate those wages depending on the state. So as you can see, Louisiana is now added, right? So we can go to Louisiana, we can go to revisit, and Louisiana is added as a full year non-resident. So now we don't have to go searching to find out how we make this state non-resident or part year resident. We've made it very easy in the general information page, which is the very first page that comes up, right? You can select this. So that process in itself is going to make your life significantly easier when you're dealing with states because it will auto add and it auto marks what state, what type they are. Like I know there's a couple of different states where, states sort of handle the resident status of taxpayers very differently. Some states have different forms, completely different forms. Some have checkboxes and date ranges that you have to put in. Other states have a schedule that you add. This eliminates all of that. We're going to know based on what you mark, right? Whether they're a full year resident, a part year resident, or a non-resident, we're going to pull the appropriate information where it needs to go. By and large part, unless there's something specific with the state that you need to do, states will pretty much fill themselves out based on the information from the federal. Just depends on the state, of course. So now I have my 1099, my W-2 is entered, and you see my refund jumped all the way to $10,000 down here. And that's because now I qualify for child tax credit, I qualify for EIC, I qualify for the dependent care expenses because dependent care expense credit because we put that information in earlier. So I'm not done though, because I still have a 1099 NEC. Now with a 1099 form, I don't care what variation it is, you always want to add schedules before forms. So we're going to report his Schedule C or his 1099 NEC to a Schedule C. So we're going to go in here, we're going to go add new. We're going to say he was a dog walker. Right. Now in the business codes, we can pick from list. And you can select the main business category on this side. I don't think there is one here in this case, so I'm just going to pick something random. And then you select it in the subcategory and hit save. It'll pull that information in. Okay. We are going to answer, by default, we set it as cash. We also answer that you materially participated in the business in 2021. You don't have to answer those questions, they're already there. So now that I've got everything entered in here, I can hit this 1099 NEC, and what's going to happen is it's going to save my Schedule C and take me to the 1099 NEC input screen. So now we click Add New, and we tell you down here at the bottom, you must create Schedule C, or E or F or Form 4835 prior to entering 1099 NEC. So we try to warn you and give you as much information as we can inside the software, right? So we're going to click Add New. Payers TIN. It's the same one for everybody. And then we're going to enter the non-employee compensation, which we're going to say was $12,000. Now, right here in this reporting section is the part that you have to pay attention to. What you want to do is click Pick from List, select your schedule, and then click Use. Again, pick from list, select the schedule, click Use, then hit Save. Now, if we go back now and look at our filed forms in this tab, the filed forms is everything that's going to be attached to the return, right? So now we can go look at the Schedule C, and you'll see that the gross sales are showing 12,000. The net profit loss is showing 12,000 because we have not entered any expenses, which is what we're going to do next. So we're going to go into this Schedule C and we're going to start adding some expenses. Now, by and large part, all of the expenses are pretty much the same, right? The advertising office expenses, these are all manual entry, but I do want to show you one thing. So if I go into this office expense and I click this clipboard, which is a work pad, we can enter multiple things. And it'll keep an itemized list inside the software. And when I save, if we go back to this at any point, right, it's going to calculate everything that we entered. And if I click there, it's going to give me everything else that's there as well. It'll still keep that list there. All right. And I'm going to show you what the work pads look like up at the top so that we can see it. Now, in this particular case, because I'm going to show you, I'll leave it. I was going to say, if you have work pads, you can't switch between input views, right? So like, for example, if I tried to view this return in interview mode, it would give me an error message saying I can't because I have work pads. There are no work pads in interview mode. It's very simplistic in its design. Okay. Let's throw 632 in advertising. Then we're going to get to the car and truck expenses. So you have a couple of options for car and truck. You can come down here into the Part 4 vehicle summary, which is what we're going to do because we're just going to look at, in terms of car and truck, we're going to look at mileage because you guys generally will take mileage over actual expenses probably 9 out of 10 times. So we're going to click Add New. Where'd it go? Now, there's been some confusion, I guess, in years past. So I want to make sure I clarify this so that everybody really understands. The date the vehicle is placed in service is not 1/1 of 2021. It is the date that the vehicle was placed in service. So the date that the vehicle was first used in business. For example, if they bought a car in let's say a truck. They bought a pickup truck in 2019, in June of 2019, then the date placed in service for that truck for the mileage you're calculating for this year is June, let's say 3rd of 2019. It wouldn't be June 1st or January 1st of 2021. While it's not as important for mileage and standard mileage or actual vehicle expenses, it becomes drastically and amazingly important when you talk about depreciation because items devalue over time, right? The depreciation declines over time. So if you've got, let's say you bought a new computer and you're putting 1/1 of 2021 every year, you're never depreciating that item. You're never depreciating that computer. And I want to say I think it's 5 years on a computer. After 5 years, your depreciation is 0. So if you're starting at year 1 every year, you're not processing it correctly. And if your client gets audited, they're going to have a question about, wait, so you bought a computer on January 1st of every year for the last 5 years? Okay, we're going to need to see receipts, right? So I wanted to make sure that I clarified that. So we're going to choose 4/4 of 2019 for this vehicle. Now you're going to enter in the total business miles. We're going to put, then we got to answer the $1 million questions, right? Do you have evidence? Is it written? Did you use more than 5 vehicles? Did you lease it? That kind of thing. So we see the standard mileage rate down here at the bottom is 3912. Well, we're not sure, though, if the actual expenses are greater than that or not, right? So you can add up your actual expenses and then just calculate it, right? You can enter in, let's say 2650 and then 27. Okay, well, then in that case, right, it's going to be significantly bigger. So then we would take actual expenses versus the standard mileage rate. In this case, we're just going to take the standard mileage rate and we're going to go on. So now we see, right, it's all filled out in here. So let's bump over into depreciation, which is going to be the next sort of item in this process. And we're going to do that by clicking Form 4562. There is no depreciation module, which some of you may have been used to. So we're going to click Add New. And now we start talking about the difference, right? So here we start talking about property information, so items and goods. And down here, we're talking about vehicles. This is, again, you can add your vehicles into here, or you can add it onto the Schedule C directly. So here we're going to add software, right? So we're going to add Tax Hound Software. And that would be one that you're putting in service on 1/1 of 2021, right? Because you're using it every year. It's a renewal. Inside here, sorry about that. Let me turn this off. So we've added this for 2021. I'm sorry about that. So we need to enter the cost basis. We're going to throw $7.99 in there. So a lot of preparers don't know what the right property types are, what the methods are, the acres and makers and all of that stuff. So we've decided that we were going to build this out to make this significantly easier, right? So if you click this Help Me button, we've made it so that it's much more similar for those of you that are coming over from Simple Tax. It's much more simple than the way it was. So in this case, it's computer software, which I'm not sure which one this is. Right here. So see, it's got a 3-year straight line half-year method. So we do apply and close, and it's all there. And now we can hit save. So that should make that depreciation process significantly greater. I'm not getting depreciation because I don't think that we have, I don't think everything has been calculated yet, but yeah, we don't have the depreciation rates from the IRS. That's why it's there. Okay, so we'll hit save. Those will update once we have all of that information. Again, you can go pick from list here, Schedule C, and use if you need to change it. So you don't have to delete an asset if that asset belongs to a different Schedule C than the one that you have it marked for. Yes and yes. Doesn't really matter on this screen anyway, but so that's how depreciation works. So now you see my refund has gone down because I have this Schedule C income. It changed my tax bracket. We reported a $6,000 gain, right? So now we're done, right? We've done everything that we need to do in the return. So let's hit verify and let's see what we got. So we've got a couple of things in here. Let's start at the bottom because these are the non-critical things. So we want to start right here with Form QBI. This is really, really easy to do. Click here to fix. Thought it would. So if you go to the QBI, when you click here to fix, it should take you here. But again, we're in pre-production software. So all you do is click Add New at the top here. Pick from list, select your schedule, hit Use, hit Save. That's it. And then you come down to the bottom, click Save, and that one's done. So we're going to hit Verify again. And let's go look at the 8812. So it says this is where we need to enter the advanced child tax credit payments, right, that we saw. We gave you a link directly to that portal. So if your customers are able to do this, they need to go in and create their ID Me account, right? We talked about this before. They got to enter their email and go through this process. I am going to try to create a video or a walkthrough of this ID Me process. I just have to be very careful because I only get one shot at it. So if I miss a step or something like that, it's going to be a problem. So in this case, we're going to say that we did get it. The child tax credit for my dependent or for Bruno's dependent is $1,800, right? So we're gonna put in $1,800 because it's what was paid out was half of what they qualify for. And since Tootsie, who's Bruno's dependent, qualifies for $3,600 as a child tax credit for the year, $1,800 would have already been paid out by January 1st, typically. So we're going to say save here. All right. And we're going to go back to verify. And let's go look at this coronavirus bill. So this is great. We talked about this in the tax law updates, right? They can use their 2019 earned income to calculate EIC for tax year 2021 if their 2019 earned income was greater than their 2021 earned income. In this particular case, it's not, right? So we're going to go in, we're going to click here to fix. It's going to take us to that page. And because we know it's not, we're just going to hit save. And that will clear the verify error. So we go to verify, that's gone. So now we need to enter the recovery rebate information. So we're going to click there. And in this case, we're going to say we got the recovery rebate credit that we needed to. If we say no, then you just have to enter the amount they actually did receive. But we're going to say Bruno got it for himself and for Tootsie. So we'll hit save. We're going to go verify again. Now all that's left is the 8867 and the taxpayer PIN. And this is usually where I like to leave the return at. So we're going to click here to fix on the 8867, and we're going to click add new. And this is the 8867 that you guys have always been working with. There's just a couple of modifications. So we're going to answer our questions. We gray out questions you don't need to answer. If I answered yes, then I would need to answer those. Because I answered no, I don't need to answer those. Question 5. This is asking about record retention. So what documents did you use to determine their eligibility? And what documents did you keep? Right? So you want to click attach explanation after you answer yes and enter the documents that you kept or that you used. This will help you in an IRS audit because then you will be able to go to this, pull what you need into this actually prints on its own page in the return. So you can find that page, go look, okay, these are the documents that I used, and then give them the copies of those documents. It makes it a lot easier for you to be able to process what it is that you've done. In addition, it makes sure that you did view documents and that you're saying you did. Right. Then we just sort of answer the questions. Now, do not do what I just did. Answer the questions. You got to read and answer these questions. I don't, because this isn't a real return, right? But you do want to make sure that you are reading and answering those questions. And remember, these are questions for you, not for the taxpayer. You are the one that needs to be answering these questions, right? Now, down in the bottom, it's probably my favorite feature in this entire software. There's this box here, and this is where you ask your questions. For example, Bruno is a single father who's filing head of household with one dependent. Why isn't the mother claiming the dependent? These are questions that have to be asked, right? This is part of your due diligence. So when you ask that question, you can put his answer. Right. So you put in whatever you need to put in. By default, it puts today's date as the date the information was received. You want to put who you received the information from. If you got it from the taxpayer, if you got it from the spouse, or if you got it from both. And then you want to check this box down here that says check to generate this worksheet for taxpayer signature. This will print out what you typed in here with basically a statement that says the information was provided by me and is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. So you're putting the information that is in this box, you're putting the responsibility for it on your taxpayers, right? They're signing saying this information is what I provided to the tax preparer and it's true. So they can't come back later and say, no, I never said that, or I didn't tell you that when the IRS comes to audit them for EIC fraud, right? So that's why I love it. And I'll show you that when we look at the view print on exactly how that page looks. All right, so now we're going to verify. So the last thing that we have left now is the taxpayer PIN information. So we're going to click here to update. Your ERO PIN and EFIN should already be set for you. If for whatever reason the ERO PIN is not set, reach out to me and we'll get it straight. All you're going to do in here is click auto generate PIN, check the box that says entered by ERO, and then click save. Okay, and now we're done. This return is done. We have no verify errors. It's done. Now, once the season goes live, you will have a complete button up here, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in the prior year software. So I'm going to jump over to log into prior year. since I have a couple of returns in here. So there'll be a complete button up here. And when you click complete, this one says I have verify errors. Oh, I do. Oh, let me click. Did I not clear it? Oh, I didn't. Let me clear this out just so we can complete this return. All right, let me go to a different one. That one's requiring more work than I actually want to do on it. This one should be done. Yeah. So this is what comes up. Now, in this complete section, right, you've got two questions. One says, are you ready to mark the return complete? Basically, what this question is asking is, are you ready to take payment? Okay. Once you mark a return complete, then you will be able to process the payment. The second question is, are you ready to mark the return as reviewed? Which basically means, are you ready to e-file this return? So if both of those questions is yes, then you want to answer yes. Generally speaking, unless someone else is reviewing the return before it's transmitted, you will answer yes to both of these questions. Okay, so we're going to do save and redirect return. We're going to go back out here to the client manager, and we're going to go to payment. So when you go to payment, your button will say start payment, and then you'll have add new invoice. We're going to go to edit here. You see I have mine. So then we get into the client payment details, which essentially is the invoice, right? So we know that the total amount to be paid is 150, right? If you want to do federal and state, then it marks 150. If you want to modify those charges, you click modify. That's where you can enter a description. You can enter a description for a discount. You can add additional charges. Okay. Now, here's where the difference is between cash payments, which is money up front, and bank products. It literally is this payment mode. So if you do non-banking, it's going to be cash. If you do banking, it'll be the bank application. Like I said before, I can't show you the bank application because we're in that weird time frame when the banks are closed and they haven't reopened yet. So the bank application has disappeared. That being said, again, it's not different than any other bank application you've ever done. It's essentially the same. I don't believe that any of you guys will struggle. Now, January 3rd, when the software opens, I'm going to get that client payment into a guided walkthrough and put it onto the support site in the knowledge base. I will also be sure that I send that out to everybody, or send a link directly to the knowledge base article out to everybody so that you guys can walk through that process even before you do the first one. In this case, we're just going to do it as cash. So we're going to set non-banking. We're going to hit continue. And then you enter how you got paid, right? So they paid me cash. They paid me check. Let's just say check. And I'm going to enter the check number as 1234. Now, this is important. Depending on how you process things inside your office, this is what my process is. And this is what I want to share with you guys. I do the return. I complete the return. I get paid. I get signatures. I send copies to the taxpayer, right? They get their copies. I print or email. And then I file the return. Filing the return for me is the very last thing that I do. That's just my process. You guys may have a different process. So what I'm saying is this. Two things. One, you do not want to answer this question and mark this complete unless they have physically paid you, right? Once they give you the money, whether it's a check or a cash or money or a credit card, whatever it is, once that transaction is complete, then mark the invoice complete, because you guys do not have the ability to reset an invoice that you marked complete. Once it's marked complete, it's marked complete. Okay. If for whatever reason you do need to change it, let me know. I can get it reset. It just takes a little bit of time. So that's why I always say be absolutely sure that they have paid you before you mark it as complete. Okay. I always leave this, do you want to e-file this return question, as no, because again, my process is get paid, then get signatures, then give them copies. E-file is the last thing that I do. If yours is different, if it's signatures, copies, payment, and then e-file, then you can answer yes. But I generally leave it as no. So we're going to do save and continue. So we've processed the payment. The balance due is 0. So now we go back to manage returns, and you see now I have the transmit button. So a couple of things to point out here specifically about client payment. One is, if this client payment button is grayed out, it is because the return is not marked complete. Until the return is complete, you cannot take payment. You cannot process the payment, right? Second, if this transmit now button is grayed out, it's one of two reasons. Either you haven't completed the payment, or there's still a balance due showing, or the return is not marked reviewed. The return is not marked reviewed, it cannot be transmitted. Okay. For prior year, if we do transmit now, you'll see it's going to give you two options. Because the IRS is shut down for e-filing for tax year 2020, you can either queue the return with us and we will file it as soon as they open, or you can paper file the return. I will tell you this, the likelihood of them processing that paper return before they open, before you're able to e-file it, is pretty much 0. So if I was you, I would queue the return if you're actually ready to send it. And that way, when the IRS opens up in January, we think January, we'll be able to send that return immediately. There won't be any wait, and you don't have to remember to come back and do it, right? So in this case, we're going to say do not transmit now. Now, there's a couple of other things that I want to point out to you. One, going back to this return. Right now, the client portal, you have access to send client portal. Okay, so two things about about the My Tax Office. One, remote signature is only available in the current year. You cannot send a remote signature request to the prior year. Same thing applies to the client portal. You cannot send a client portal request for the prior year. It is only in the current year. I believe text messaging is also the same way. Once we roll to the next season, those 3 functions become current year only. Okay. So you won't be able to send a taxpayer a text message that was there last year. You would have to send it to them from this year. Okay. For remote signature, I'm going to show you guys how this works. Do I want to show you? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'll show you remote signature. Remote signature. So you do remote signature only. So did you guys catch that? I'm sorry. You go My Tax Office right here, and client portal or remote signature. In this case, we just want to do remote signature. I will add, for those of you that are switching over from Simple Tax, there's no fee for remote signature. There's no fee for client portal. There's no fee for text messaging. We don't nickel and dime fees like that. Okay. So remote signature, we hit continue. And so we can send it to email or we can send it to text. I am going to send it to email just so that I can show you guys what it looks like. So we do send link via email. We hit send link. Now, important thing to note here, the link does expire after 30 minutes. It is good for 30 minutes. So if they don't get to it in 30 minutes, you'll be able to resend the link once the 30 minutes expires. So we're going to send link. We're going to back to manage returns, and you'll see what I mean. See, remote signature access link and option will be available after 30 minutes. So you'll be able to send it again from going to right here and just click send. Let me open up email here, and I want to show you guys what that looks like so we can go through that remote signature process. And is right here. So here's what that email looks like. It's a little skewed down, but you click to access, it's going to open a page, right? And on this page, it's going to ask for their first name and their last name. It's going to ask for their social, which I don't remember what I put. So, oh, good. Well, let me copy and paste. No. Dang it. 55512 5485. Okay. And I know I did March. It's gonna March 23rd. In 1986. Okay. We're going to do validate user. Now, I do not know if it will let me actually do the remote signature because, again, we're in that pre-production of the software, but I'm going to take you through sort of what the process is. The process is sort of like this. They'll be able to view any of these forms, which they can, and I'm actually going to show you a form that we talked about earlier, which is this prepare a note. This is that page where it says mother's not claiming the defendant because she's in doggy jail that we saw earlier that they have to sign. So, and you see it's watermarked pre-production release. That's because we are in pre-production. So once they review the documents here, they are going to click a checkbox. It's going to be right here. It's going to say, I have reviewed the return. Then it will ask them if they want to electronically sign the documents. They're going to say yes. And then they can sign using their mouse or their finger if they're on their mobile device. And then they hit save and complete. That's it. And then it comes right back in. Now, one of the things to point out in this is that there is no delay in the signatures inside this software because they are connecting directly to the return. So when they sign and they go, okay, I finished, you will see it immediately in this signature box. If you do not see it, it's because they did not finish. That's it. Now, if you're using a signature pad, which I know a few of you are, you can come into here and you just hit signature, select the pages, or you can set to this in the default in the setup, and I can show you guys where that is if anybody really wants to know. And then you hit start, and then the taxpayer signs. In this case, I'm using the mouse. You set the date. By default, it should set a date. It's not setting a date now because they shouldn't be signing right now. They should be signing after January 1st. So then we do safe signature, and that's it. It's done. Signature is there. It is saved. It is stored. So you're done as far as that goes. So like I said, that was sort of my process. Now, I do want to point out one other thing because I didn't do it at the beginning, which is DM Docs. Okay, DM Docs is the document archive or the document scanner feature. Some of you may have purchased the scanners. They're $99. You can get them at ipevo.com. It's ipevo.com. It's whatever one is $99. I don't remember the exact model number. If you need help finding it, let me know. But the scanner works with any webcam. So right now, webcam is running, but if I was to stop my webcam, it would take a picture of me. Okay. You can also upload documents. So if they send you documents via email or anything like that, you can upload those and you can decide whether or not those documents can be viewed in the client portal if you give them access to the client portal. So I told you I wasn't going to be able to show you the client portal, and unfortunately I can't. So I will have a video on the client portal, absolutely, once that goes live for this year. I have some stuff from last year, but it's a little bit different. So the client portal, essentially, the client portal is exactly what we just saw in the remote signature, except they have a few more options on the left-hand side. They have to actually create a login account when they do the client portal. They'll verify the same information. They have the ability to upload documents. They can send messages. They can review the return. They can sign their return electronically. Like I said, it's basically like the remote signature. They just have a few more options on the left-hand side. That's really all the difference is. But it is a great tool to use for clients in particular for them to get copies of their return. Client portal is the easiest way to do that. Okay. Text message. So we want to send a message to the taxpayer, hey, we're missing this, whatever the case is. Now, what will happen is they will get a text message no matter what you type, right? So let's say if I type, oh, good Lord, I didn't click on anything. If I type good boy, what the client will see is that. It will say my tax office and then the message that you see. The reason for that is so that they know who it's coming from, because it's not going to be coming from one of your phone numbers. It's going to be coming from a generic number. Anybody who has the two-step authentication set up to log into the software, it's coming from that same phone number. So all of them will be coming from a singular phone number. If they call that number, it will go nowhere. If they reply to the text, you will get it. And I'll show you. So I'm going to send this to me, and then I'm going to reply to this text, and I'm doing this so that you guys can see. So I replied. It'll take a second. We come back here. Well, maybe it will. Go back to. Oh, it didn't pick up my auto reply. Strange. When it comes back, you'll get a message up here that says view text messages. You'll get a little notification that's showing you have new text messages. Again, I apologize. We're in pre-production, so there's some things that we still got to work out. All right. So now we're back here. We've gone over signatures. We've gone over DM docs. We've gone over text messages. We've gone over remote signature. So we've got everything that we need, right, for this return for us to complete. We'll do the payment once we can do the payment. I think even if I mark this complete, it won't. Oh, it will. Cool. So if we do start payment, it won't let me finish. Oh, well. So we've done everything that we need to do sort of inside this return. So now we want to send to them their copy, get your copy, right? So we're going to click view print. And view print's going to generate the return. So your copy, if they signed using a signature pad or remote signature, if they used anything other than a pen, I'll say it that way, to sign the return, you can save your copy by going to print, prepare a copy, and then export to document manager. When we do that, that will actually go over into DM docs, and I will show you what that looks like. So we go DM docs. You see it's here. If we check this box, then your copy will be shown to the client in the client portal, right? We don't want that because it's your copy. So we're going to go look. Have we enabled print? No. Okay. So now you see here's the full return, the post-session letter, return status letter. What we're looking at, though, is page 2 of the 1040, and you see that signature is saved. My signature is missing because I haven't set it up. And I'm going to show you guys where to set up your signatures when we finish out this return. Okay. So now we can go back to view print, and the customer wants their copy. Now, what the IRS says is that you and your client have to agree on how they get their copy. That is it. You're required to provide them a copy, but it does not have to be in paper. You do not have to provide them a physical copy unless they request it. That's essentially how it works, right? If they say, no, I want a paper copy, then you print it. You have the ability inside the software to send them the customer copy with a watermark, if you so choose, via email. I have some clients that only send via email. They tell them that's part of their process is, I'm going to email you a copy of your return. It's going to be encrypted. The instructions on how to decrypt are at the bottom of the email. And that's how she does it, right? Everybody gets it via email. There's no exceptions, unless someone goes, well, I'd rather have a printed copy. Then she prints the copy. I don't know that that's a particularly bad way to do it, quite honestly, especially with as easy as it is to email customer copies out of this software. That could save you a ton of time and paper and money just emailing them the copy of their return. And then if they request a physical copy, then you can give it to them later, even if they request a physical copy at a later date. But they can always print it themselves, right? So we're going to do email customer copy. And it's going to pop up. And it's going to give us the email address that was on the account, right? Or that was in the return. If we need to change that for any other reason, we can just make the change. And we can send it anywhere we want to send it. So like this, I'm going to send to my email just so you guys get a look at what that email looks like, as well as how the password, because the PDF is encrypted, how the password is generated, how it creates. And we'll go over that in just a second here. As soon as that return comes in, come here. There it goes. So you'll see here's the email. I don't know what that is. I need to look at that. I think I have my logo uploaded. It tells them, everything that they need to know, gives them the information. And then down here at the bottom in this section, it gives them the instructions for opening the attached PDF. It's the first 4 letters of the primary of their first name, right? Followed by the month, day, and year of their date of birth, followed by the last 4 of the social. That's it. You guys knowing what this is will save you a great deal of time, because you can actually do this. So in the case of Bruno, right? He's saying, well, I don't know the password. I can't open it. I don't know what to do, whatever the case is, right? We know that we know how the password was generated, so we can send it to him. And that's one of the things that you can use text for, because the IRS says, right, that you have to, if you send an encrypted PDF, you cannot send the password in the same email. You can give them instructions on how the password is generated, but you cannot give them the password in the email. However, since we have texting enabled, we can send him a text that says, I got to get that fixed. Your PDF password is BRUN, right? First 4 letters of the first name, date of birth, right? 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year, and then the last 4 of the social. That is the password. And then we can send that text. And now it's saved. I've gotten it on my cell phone, right? It's already here. And now if we were to go open this PDF, there's the password box. One, 2, 3, 1986. Assuming I did this correct. Yeah, I don't think I did it correct. Cancel. I didn't generate the right password. It's 03. 03, not 01. And actually, let me open that again just so you guys can see it. So it comes up like this. What? It's not wanting to open for me. Not sure why. I'm sure that has to do with me more than anything else. But that's how that works. So they can do all of that, and they can send. You can send it to them that way. They can also get it through the client portal. That, to me, is the best advice I can give you for utilizing the client portal. Once they sign electronically using the remote signature, they should have access. Once they have signed and the return has been sent and complete, then you'll have the ability to click a button right here that says upgrade to client portal. And at that point, they'll get a client portal email, and it will tell them to create their accounts and verify their identity. I have one client that does that. She gives them the email the first time, and then the second time, she sends them the client portal. Like, I've provided you the email. Here's the client portal where you can get all of your documents and copies of your tax return on your own time, anytime you want them. Just create your login account. Now, the client portal will carry from year to year, but not backwards. For example, if you send them, so right now, if you send them the client portal for tax year 2021, and they come back and do their return in 2022, it will have 21 and 22. If you send it to them now for 2021 and then do their 2020 return, the 2020 return will not be in the client portal. Everything works inside the current year and moves forward from that. Okay. The last thing I kind of want to show you. So we've done everything sort of inside the return that we need to do. Like I said, it's a pretty easy software. I blocked out a lot of time just in case you guys had particular things you wanted to see, but we're about how long I thought it would take us is about 90 minutes. The last thing I want to show you guys is how to modify the signature pad. So you go setup and then sign pad. And if you're using one of these two models, both of these are Topaz models, you can install either one. Now, if you need help installing, please let me know. I'll do it. I did it for a couple of people earlier this week and it came out fine. So the first thing we want to do is firm signature. The firm signature is the ERO signature. So you click start and then you sign. And then save, right? And then you want to do the prepare signature. And so in this one, it's me. So I will click start and sign. And then you click save, and that's it. It's done. Now your signatures are saved, and they'll be in the return. Every time you print it, it will be signed by you automatically. You should never have to sign another tax return again inside here, inside the Tax Hound software anyway. All right, so I'm